So good afternoon and good evening, everyone. My name is Yong Yimin. I'm the chief of the SDG monitoring section at the UN Statistical Division. So I would like to welcome you all to this HLPF special event, the SDGs in practice session on data collection and analysis for SDG monitoring. This session has been organized by the UN Statistical Division and the Data Diplomacy Academy with input from Equality Insights at International Women's Development Agency. So we're very excited to have you with us today as we dive into the importance role of data in advancing the SDGs and the involvement of citizens in the whole data value chain for SDG monitoring. So we have developed this session with the citizens' crucial role in SDG monitoring as the overarching theme, and we'll dive into the two main approaches. One is the citizen engagement, which enhances the inclusivity and accuracy of data, and data diplomacy, which foster international cooperation. So by involving all society actors in data collection, analysis, use, we can create a more accurate and inclusive picture of progress, highlighting areas that need attention and ensuring that the benefits of development are widely shared. This is where citizen engagement in data collection can play a pivotal role. So by contributing to data gathering and the monitoring efforts, citizens can help identify gaps and inefficiencies to inform more targeted and effective policy intervention for issues that matter most to their communities. Data diplomacy is another key piece of this collaborative effort. Particularly in energy sector, one of the key transition area with the potential to drive a progress across multiple goals. As a country work towards shared energy goals, transparent and cooperative data sharing can build trust and encourage international collaboration. So by leveraging data diplomacy, countries can align their efforts, share best practices, and help each other overcome common obstacles, speeding up progress towards SDGs. So we will start the session with a quick introduction to data and statistics, covering both the traditional and non-traditional data sources, as well as the concept of data diplomacy. So we will also provide an overview of global SDG monitoring and tools for SDG exploration, such as the UN Data Commons for the SDGs. We will then have two interactive segments, one on citizen participation and discussing avenues for engagement through citizen data, and another one on the application of data diplomacy. So together, these elements can help ensure that policies are well informed, fair, and effective, paving the way for a sustainable future where no one is left behind. Thanks for joining us today. So your participation is a key as we work together to harness the power of data to drive progress towards SDGs. So I will now hand it over to my colleague, Heather Page, who will moderate the session. Thank you very much. Over to you, Heather.
Thank you so much, Youngie. We really appreciate you being here and opening the session and welcoming us as we dive into data and SDGs. So thank you so much. Before we get started, I just wanted to do a few housekeeping items very quickly. Okay, so there is an option for captions at the very bottom of your screen. There is a more and 3 dots. You can click on the more, and there will be captions where you can select the language that you need for any captions. And then I also wanted to mention that we will have 2 segments, main segments later in the session, and we have some Miro virtual boards to receive feedback during those sessions. So Here I have some QR codes, which you would have to use on your phone, but also we've added the links to the chat so that you are welcome to already get into those or just at least open them. And before we get started, very quickly, I just wanted to go over the program of the session. We've had our introduction and welcome to the session by Young-Yi. Thank you so much. And then we will delve into data essentials from official statistics to data diplomacy. We will also have a session on, or a segment on, exploring the SDG data ecosystem, tools and insights. And then the longer, kind of more interactive sessions are segment 1 on citizens at the core, engagement for better and more inclusive data, and an additional segment on a deep dive on one of the 6 key transitions, SDG 7, energy. And then we will conclude with some closing remarks. So we were so excited in planning this session to show you so many different tools and resources and activities that we forgot or we did not actually plan for a Q&A session. So we are going to actively use the chat. Please feel free to add in any questions that you have as we go. We will also try to have a little bit of time for that during some of the longer segments, but please do let us know if you have any questions and we'll be happy to answer those as we go. So I will stop sharing this now. And then we will proceed to the first session, which is data essentials from official statistics to data diplomacy. The first presentation is an overview of the data ecosystem, official statistics, non-traditional data sources, and data stewardship. And our colleague Hui Chen, statistician from the UN Statistics Division, will present this segment. So I will pass the floor to Hui. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Heather. I think the title promised a lot. I have 7 minutes, so let's see where we get to. So I will be talking about the national data ecosystem and starting with the official statistics and then move on to the larger system. And really briefly, there is actually no definition of official statistics, but there's something saying that what is official statistic is data from are collected and disseminated by government agencies or other authoritative bodies to provide information on economic, demographic, social, environmental conditions. So this is, I feel this is a little bit outdated, but more importantly, I would like to go through a few data sources that under the official statistics that have been there for decades. One is population censuses, and it's almost always be led by national statistical offices. So it's a count of everybody in the country. The methods for counting have changed over time, but for still a majority of countries, there is actually count, like people are visiting door to door and count people. And we'll talk about why it's important. And then there are household surveys. So household surveys do not count everybody, it do not cover everybody, it covers a proportion of people. And this proportion and who get to be approached, there's a very careful way of designing that. So make sure everyone has some chance, all of us have some probability or chance to be selected to respond. So one of us will be representing a group of people similar to us. So I basically, if I get selected to respond to a household survey, then I represent people like me. That's the assumption behind a survey. And then it has been there for 50, 60 years, and it's still going very strong, facing a lot of challenges, but still going strong. Then there are, we call it authoritative data. There's sort of byproduct of administrative registers. So these data, they were not there for data collection purposes. They were really for administrative purposes. But then there's so much data being collected through these administrative purposes. And the one thing extremely important to human rights and also to data in policy is birth and death registration, right? If you want to know how many people are born in the country, how many people died in the country in a given year, in the given day, or a given month. And this is where this baby is getting a birth certificate. It's the rights of her showing that there's a proof that there's such baby, that the person exists in the world. And also there are data that come with it. So there are a lot of challenges that come with this data. Just if during COVID, for example, when we talk about everyone's very much interested in knowing how big the impact of COVID on mortality, but realize a lot of countries in the world do not even know how many people died pre-COVID, not to mention measuring the impact of COVID. So there has been a huge challenge on that. But those are the three major data sources and examples that have been really used by official statistics by national statistical offices. So what are the data being used for? Just to give some examples to our daily life. For example, we all know that US Census, the recent census happened in 2020, which is in the middle of, it was, I think the date was April 1st. It was really in the middle of a pandemic. And so New York City and New York State's population shrinked a lot if we compare the 2020 versus 2010. People start to move back now after COVID, which is a great thing. But the challenge is because of that census data are being used to allocate seats for Senate, House, and New York State lost 2 seats. I think there's still lawsuits going against the U.S. Census Bureau for that because so it has a lot to do with elections, and so extremely important census count. And another example is unemployment rate. And we hear a lot in the media, unemployment in the US is about 4%, but in Spain, the first quarter of 2024 is 12%, which is very high. This data came from labor force surveys. So a lot of countries, or some countries, have their labor force survey runs every 3 months. Okay. So, and then there is the poverty data. It's also based on household surveys. And then I have example on under 5 mortality that should come from administrative data, death registration, birth and death registration. So these are really important usage of official statistics. I just had an example in one of the articles, news articles about how US Census had contributed to the change and then make people aware of how occupation has changed over time. Now we know that technology has contributed a lot of changes in occupation. But back then they checked in 1910, the Wright brothers put their occupation as merchant and bicycle. They're probably selling bicycles. But in 2020, when they were asked to write down their occupation, they said we're inventor in aerospace. And it's only until 1950, there is an official occupation category called airplane designer. So really interesting usage of official statistics. So there are a few really important elements I want to bring it out. One is the fundamental principle of official statistics that really guard official statistics on, it has to be impartial, professional standard. And then there are a lot of important other elements. For example, the official statistics should respond to user needs. And there are a lot of frameworks to be used. And then how data should be disseminated and communicated, and there's a quality management. And just to link to the UNSD work, we have the STAT Commission, which brings all the chief statisticians together to talk about official statistics. And UNSD, UN Statistics Division, and specialized agencies and other. I think I have one more slide. Now, bring back to the official statistic and non-official statistics. There is a national statistical office is at the core of a national statistical system for official statistics, and there are other ministries that contribute to the administrative data sources. And then there are, let me point out, citizen-generated data right there that's really produced by civil society organizations, communities. And there is a potential for them to come in, become part of larger data ecosystem. So they could stay in, become official statistics, and they can also choose to stay outside of official statistics. But that's how the CGD will come in. I'll have more information on that in the next segments, following segments. So that's all. Just really focusing on this as a stewardship, a steward of national statistical system and national data ecosystem, the role of NSOs, national statistical offices there. Thank you, Heather. Am I in my limit?
You did great. Thank you so much, Ellie. Next, we are going to hear about data diplomacy, what it means and how it works. Professor Rafael Mesquita from the Federal University of Pernambuco will provide a presentation on this. So I will pass the floor to you, Rafael. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Heather. Thank you, Hawaii, for your presentation as well. Let me just confirm, can you all see my slides?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So, this presentation will be on data diplomacy, what it is and how it works. The motivation for this is that we all have this perception that data is becoming an ever more present aspect of our daily lives in how we interact with other people, even with objects around us. Data is ubiquitous, and sure enough, it's also changing how governments interact with one another and other stakeholders as well in the international sphere. Hence, the concept of data diplomacy is a heuristic that helps us organize mentally the different ways in which the spheres of data science and international affairs are overlapping. And to begin understanding data diplomacy, the point of departure is actually science diplomacy. For those who are familiar with the term, they will know that it was defined a number of years ago as comprising three related phenomena, depending on which of the two spheres, whether science or diplomacy, was the means and which was the ends of the relationship. For example, in the first case, science diplomacy, we have scientific advice informing foreign policy decision-making. Think, for example, of how scientists provide advice for governments on how to handle the climate crisis. In the second case, diplomacy for science, the end goal is scientific, but perhaps because the research project is too big, multilateral cooperation is required for that aim to be achieved. Think here, for example, of all the mobility programs that move scientists back and forth, or large multinational research infrastructures like the CERN in Geneva. And last, science for diplomacy takes place when the end goal is political or diplomatic, and science is the means to achieve that goal. For instance, when two countries have poor diplomatic relations, it is common that the world of academia, conferences, etc., provides a track too for the continuation of dialogue when official channels have gone silent. A few years ago, Andy Boyd and co-authors proposed that data diplomacy could be regarded as an update to those variants of science diplomacy, and accordingly, it also comes in three flavors. The first one, data in diplomacy, refers to whenever we have the infusion of data, of expertise about data in how countries inform their conduct. Now, may I call your attention to the fact, picking up on Howie's presentation a minute ago, that this is actually not new. It's very common that diplomats will turn to official statistics like census data, GDP data, trade data, in order to prepare for negotiations. What is new, it's the volume of data nowadays, so that diplomats can rely on large amount of information in order to prepare for negotiations. The second variant, data in diplomacy, consists in a practice where stakeholders interact to advance data. In other words, the objective is data-driven, and we bring in diplomatic actors in order to achieve that goal. One of the necessities of data, to give an example, is interoperability. Data that works in multiple systems in many countries is more useful to the community than data that only works in one place. So for properly producing data that is useful, for example, for the classification of diseases, it is necessary to go beyond the individual researcher, the individual university, and bring to the fore multilateral organizations, such as the World Health Organization, where multiple parties can meet and in a centralized forum deliberate on standardized procedures to produce that data or label that data henceforth. And the third variant, data for diplomacy, happens when data experts interact in a way that creates a platform that in the long run might be able to ameliorate diplomatic channels between different stakeholders, between countries. This is a case that happens, for example, when data scientists create digital platforms that are serviceable for diplomats, for officials to conduct their business, or in circumstances when we have data-rich assets or topics. Consider, for example, something like health or a biome that straddles across multiple borders and many countries share that biome. That asset is generating constantly a lot of data, a lot of information that is a continuous inducement for scientists, for researchers from these places to meet, collaborate, and exchange, all of which in the long run might contribute to an approximation to the health of bilateral relations for all the parties that share that data-producing asset. Oh, sorry, just skipped too fast over my last slide. Now, of course, this was a primer, really, a very brief overview of what is data diplomacy. For those who have interest in delving deeper into the topic, I recommend a quick look on the definition of science diplomacy by the Royal Society or the original article by Boyd and co-authors. And that's it for me. Now over to you, Heather.
Thank you so much, Rafael. That was excellent. It's really great to, I mean, I know at least also for us, this is a new area that we are not used to. So it's really nice to see this and to hear about it and to learn about it. So very excited also for the segment a little bit later to delve a bit more. So thank you so much. Okay, so next we will be exploring the SDG data ecosystem tools and insights. And I will share my screen to provide this presentation to the group. Sorry, just give me 1 second to get set up here. Okay. Great, and I will set my own timer as well. Okay. So the progress on the 2030 agenda is assessed and reviewed at the global level using a set of global SDG indicators. I think most of us are familiar with this, but just in case, I wanted to briefly mention that this global SDG indicator framework was developed by the Interagency and Expert Group on the SDG indicators and adopted by the General Assembly in July 2017. This group, we kind of call them the caretakers of the framework, is comprised of statistical experts from 28 member states. And the framework contains 231 unique indicators addressing each and every one of the goals and targets of the 2030 agenda. And so the follow-up and review process of the 2030 agenda is informed by an annual SDG progress report prepared by the Secretary General based on this framework and is an integral input to the high-level political forum. UNSD coordinates this global SDG reporting, and we collaborate with more than 50 international and regional organizations for the reporting in the database. So the report provides an overview of the progress and the challenges in achieving the SDGs, and I'll describe the findings of this year's report in just a minute. And so here I just wanted to give a very brief overview of the data flows for global SDG reporting. As how we mentioned, you have the National Statistical System, which comprises the NSO, but also other ministries and agencies in country. And they work with the UN international organizations who are the custodians for those indicators. And then you have a bit of a data flow to where they will validate with countries and provide those SDG indicator data to the global SDG indicator database, as well as to the SDG report. And so, looking at the key findings from the Sustainable Development Goals Report 2024, Essentially, the world is facing intensifying and interconnected challenges, including the scarring effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, escalating conflicts, geopolitical tensions, and growing climate chaos, which are hitting SDG progress quite hard. With just 6 years remaining, the report reveals that only 17% of the SDG targets are currently on track, with nearly half showing minimal or moderate progress, and over 1/3 have stalled, or we are even witnessing regression. And in the recent launch of the report, which the Secretary General dubbed the Global SDG Report Card, he noted that the world is essentially getting a failing grade on the promise of the 2030 agenda. And looking at the goals under review at the HLPF, for instance, we understand why. So for goal 1, an additional 23 million people were pushed into extreme poverty in 2022 compared to 2019. For goal 2, over 100 million more people were suffering from hunger in 2022 compared to 2019. For goal 13, fossil fuel subsidies reached a historic high of 1.5 trillion in 2022. For goal 16, the number of forcibly displaced persons rose to 120 million, 50% more than 4 years ago, and almost double the level of 2015. And for goal 17, developing countries face a 4 trillion annual financing gap to achieve the SDGs. If we don't want this failing report card to be our future, we must accelerate action to redefine the trajectory of SDG progress. We can turn things around because SDG progress is already happening. There are successful examples of SDG progress that need to be built upon and expanded. For example, since 2015, there has been notable reductions in child mortality, HIV infections, and the cost of remittances, as well as improvements in access to water, sanitation, and mobile broadband. In addition, there are remarkable strides in renewable energy deployment, and most regions now have gender parity in school completion. We are at a critical moment of choice and consequence, and urgent priorities are clear. We need peace. Resolving ongoing conflicts through dialogue and diplomacy is essential. We also need financing development. Developing countries require more financial resources and fiscal space, and the reforming of the global financial architecture is crucial. We also need an implementation surge. Massive investment and effective partnerships are needed to drive critical transitions in food, energy, social protection, digital connectivity, and more. It is truly past time to turn words into action. So I invite you to please visit our website for the full report and additional data, insights, and information where you can really deep dive on the indicators. We also have an extended report which has additional information, key findings as well. And before I go, I just wanted to mention one last resource for SDG indicator and data insights exploration, which is the UN Data Commons for the SDGs. This is a dashboard of over 3,000 SDG statistical variables, and this is in partnership with Google. This is powered by Google's Data Commons, where you can explore SDG progress by goal, country, area, and more importantly, through a natural language search. Essentially, your questions will lead the way. You don't have to understand every facet of the indicators framework, but you can just ask your questions as to how SDG progress is faring in different countries and regions. This also, very recently, we launched the integration of the data stories from the SDG Report 2024. And we're very interested in your inputs on how we can improve the site. So here I've provided a quick survey and a link. So I just want to show very quickly, this is our landing page. We've just updated it, so I haven't had a chance to update these slides, but essentially this allows for a chance to do quite a bit of exploration of the SDGs through the countries and areas, as well as different thematic areas and other information from the UN system. And so I invite you to explore away, and hopefully this tool can also be helpful for your research and your information needs on the SDGs. So I will stop there and pass and stop. I will stop there. Okay, so next, I think we're doing okay on time. So So now we would like to move into these slightly broader sections. This first part was just to give a bit of a primer on the background of data, official statistics, non-traditional and traditional, as well as the SDGs and data diplomacy. So we have two main segments remaining, and the first one is citizens at the core, engagement for better and more inclusive data. And we will first hear about the importance of citizen engagement throughout the data value chain for more inclusive data, as well as leveraging the Copenhagen framework on citizen data and the collaborative on citizen data for sustainable development. And my colleague, Hui Chen, will now lead this session, and she will be joined by Joe Crawford, who is a strategic advisor from Equality Insights at International Women's Development Agency. So I'm going to pass the floor to Hui and Joe. The floor is yours.
Can you see my screen trying to show? It's again.
You're not in presentation mode yet.
Am I in presentation mode? Anyone can confirm?
Sorry, we can't really hear you very well, Hui.
No? Can you hear me? Are we on the presentation mode?
No, not yet.
It was okay with the other one. Just a second. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes,
No.
now we can. Yes,
Can you?
Yep,
you
and your slides are correct, yes.
Okay, perfect. So, okay. Hi everyone again. Let me quickly move to the next slide. So I'll be talking about citizen data and the Copenhagen framework, engagement of citizens. Why is it important? Let me see the next slide. So quickly, while we're doing this, as Heather has shared about the progress of SDGs, and then if you look at the data behind all the work she has done, we really don't have a good coverage of data for SDGs and beyond. So there are a lot of challenges over geographic coverage, timeliness, and then about data disaggregation and inclusiveness of data, especially for the marginalized population groups. In this chart, you can see that what we're left behind, especially in some of the goals, has been really challenging. So really building an inclusive data system requires a lot of efforts, and that's where citizens and communities can come to rescue. We're talking about data that are robust, and we're also talking about the depth of the data and the relevance of them. For example, do we really know what is the best way to ask questions? How do we really assess the level of well-being in a small community that has been isolated from the rest of the country? When we go there with our survey questionnaire, do they understand? Are we asking the right questions even? So we really need a lot of support with citizens when we talk about inclusive data. It's not to have them, not only just to have them in the survey, but also collect the data in the right way. We need a lot of support with citizens. So that's where citizens come to play. We're there to build trust. So we have an exercise later on is about building trust. Engaging with citizens, we need to engage with them throughout the data value chain. From the very beginning, designing how data should be collected, and then to the data collection, all the way to the dissemination and use of data. And throughout the SDG process, we have seen that many players and stakeholders are together taking a whole society approach. But we also need to do that with data ecosystem. And then I mentioned ensuring appropriateness of concepts, really reflecting the difference of population and what they recognize, what's meaningful to them. It's not how we think data should be collected as official statisticians sitting in the capital city. And then we really need to think beyond traditional data sources. We need to really incorporate the non-traditional ones, having new approaches to really understand the lived experience of people. Sometimes it's not even just about quantitative data we're collecting, percentage of people doing this and that, but really getting to look at what's behind all these disparities, inequalities, why, and how can we help? So we're talking about a lot about qualitative data. So we need to be very flexible with the data that come in and then really capture what we want to capture for inclusive data system. So this working with citizen-generated data has gained a lot of tractions, and that's what the Secretary General made a point that citizen-generated data allows people and communities to gather and take control of the data affecting their daily lives. And then now with less than 6 years now, citizen data is really a key ingredient for us to make sure that we're leaving no one behind. It's there to empower citizens, so they're part of the agency. They're part of data collection, part of seeing data collected through and being used to change their own life, to make an impact of their own life. Of course, they will also help with data availability, timeliness, transparency, and inclusiveness. Provide valuable insights, especially for marginalized population groups. Just giving one example, what is citizen-generated data, right? So in India, there has been a lot of collection at different communities with a lot of focus on the marginalized population groups. And then with that data collection, there are sort of like survey-like data collection, household survey data-like, but really focus on small communities. What's different between these surveys and from the official survey is the communities put a lot of input in how data should be collected, and the data collected themselves are from the communities. They're volunteers from the communities. That data really show there's a huge disparity, inequality, and in terms of their access to their well-being, access to services compared to national averages. So it really goes beyond national averages. So now to really leverage the power of citizen data and citizen-generated data, and we like to show the Copenhagen framework on citizen data. We prepared the framework and submitted to through consultations, and then rounds of consultations that went to the Statistical Commission that has all official statisticians there. The framework covers the conceptual framework. What is citizen data? Is citizen data about some data that have citizens heavily or really actively engaged in, or we're talking about data from social media or the Fitbit that we're wearing, the data from sensors. We talk a lot about the principles of citizen data and the enabling environment. How do we really nurture an environment that can be used to support for sustainable coordination, production, and use of citizen data? And lastly, how do we really implement this framework? Action plans, activities that we should be working on. So why do we have the framework? Because when we started from UNSD perspective and also the community, we brought everyone together in Bangkok 2022, and then we realized we were really talking about different languages. We need something to tell us that we're working on the common framework and with similar or agreed on terminologies that we want to work together to help us move forward. So what is, okay, so these are, I'm not going to show, but just really came from November 2022. And this year at the commission, we submitted the draft Copenhagen framework on citizen data with a lot of work with experts from different stakeholders, the communities. We have national school offices, we have civil society organizations, Human Rights Institute, academia, and then international agencies and regional organizations. We worked together towards that goal. And then we had the framework ready, a draft framework in March this year. And we're going, we go into our third meeting next week to talk about a lot about data quality. But just what is citizen data? We focus a lot on the efficient engagement of citizens. Just to show the ladder, we consider there are 5 levels. We're still working on the details on what exactly means as sufficient and insufficient, but we really felt it's so important to have citizens engaged in the very initial stage of the data value chain, designing how data should be collected and how data should be used and who owns the data, who should have access to the data and the data collection itself, and what is considered sufficient. Is informing them considered sufficient, or that they should be co-designing the process. We have 10 principles, and I'm highlighting a few of them that are, I've mentioned briefly the fundamental principle for official statistics. The 3, 6, and 9, and they are very, very relevant or specific to citizen data. And then we have a set of enabling environment. We talk about the whole of society approach, human capital, building trust, a friendly legal environment, and we talk about data governance, funding, quality, and then the right infrastructure, statistical and technical infrastructure that is inclusive. And then we have a roadmap. We are piloting and testing the framework, and we are going to finalize it. And we're really having a set of activities that we would like to implement and co-design with everyone. Make sure that really work the activities. So when we move forward, we have set a list of activities in the broader terms. What's going to happen in countries? How can we support countries in data generation, uptake and use? How can we really support and similar structure, collaborative partnership built within countries for the production and use of citizen data? And then we also talk about at the global level, how do we really bring all these great work at the country level and communities to other countries and foster peer learning and come up with norms and standards, guidance, toolkit, and then really also bring this to the global agenda. We have, it's very, very quick run through of our work, but we have an upcoming workshop next Wednesday. It's open to everyone. Right now we're closed for, it's a hybrid, so we're closed for in-person. It's reached capacity, but it's open for online participation. Please scan the barcode. I'm also going to put the link in the chat afterwards. And we also have EGM, the expert group meetings coming up next week as well. We focus a lot on building trust, the activities, implementation plans, and the data quality for citizen data. Now, before I close, just mention all this work has been supported and being carried out collaborative by the collaborative on citizen data, and we have the 10 steering committee behind this, all the work, and we have members as well. And this collaborative is really to bring all of us together, to work together. And one is to finalize the framework and really to provide a space to share knowledge and experiences, foster partnership and collaborations. And we are also there to work on methodologies. So if you're interested, please reach out to us. And I have the email. I'll put the email in the chat as well. Now, I would like to stop, but Heather, is Joe first, and then we go to the exercise, right?
Yep, that sounds good.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, just checking that you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. Thank you. Look, I think you're just going to get a taster of the extraordinary amount of rich work that is underway in the field at the moment. We've seen that with Heather and Haye's contributions in this segment, and I'm going to do exactly the same. A little bit of a taster that maybe is a bit of a front door into some initiatives that are underway and being led by civil society. So I'll start my brief remarks by touching on the importance of collecting and using disaggregated data for SDG reporting. I'll note some of the limitation in availability, particularly for SDG 1 and the implications of this and then share some examples of initiatives, resources and approaches that can provide ways around limitations and some links. Slide. So, as has already been touched on, gender, age, disability, ethnicity, socioeconomic circumstances and geographic location really influence people's needs and opportunities. So disaggregated data about the circumstances of particular groups is really vital to understand the extent to which development efforts are translating into changed lives and help us to realise the SDGs in a way that leaves no one behind. If we can't see these differences and who experiences them in data, it's more difficult for governments to act. But the disaggregated data needed is not always available. So we know that 23 million more people are living in extreme poverty, but we don't know who these people are. How many are women, men living with a disability, intersections of these, for example. But the quote on the right of the screen is from the UN's latest SDG Gender Snapshot Report. Only 42% of countries with recent official statistics on income poverty have data disaggregated by sex, and among countries producing multidimensional poverty indicators, only 20% disaggregate by sex or sex of the head of household. So why does this matter for you and for monitoring of progress and accelerating action on the SDG? So individual level data is not always available. The kind of insights that you can get when you disaggregate household level data limits the sort of disaggregation that is possible, and it hides differences inside households, making them harder to see and target. And it completely misses individuals in households that as a whole are not poor. So I want to share briefly one example to illustrate, which is the survey that was undertaken by RWDA and the Fiji Bureau of Statistics. When fuel use and exposure to fumes from cooking and heating are measured at a household level, average per capita exposure for a two-person household in a survey conducted in poverty hotspots in Fiji was 64 minutes per day. But this doesn't reflect lived realities. Measuring the circumstances of individuals reveals that men were exposed to harmful fumes for an average of 24 minutes per day, while women were exposed for an average of 105 minutes per day. So this isn't a surprise, given women are mostly responsible for cooking in Fiji, but household level measurement of energy access and use hides these lived realities. And so disaggregating household level data also provides inaccurate data about the scale of the problem and who experiences it, with implications for the ability to focus action where it's most needed. So the point here is that it matters what kind of data you disaggregate. If you're measuring at the household level and assessing circumstances common to all household members, often you're asking one household member and then assuming that their circumstances apply to everybody. And so you can see some things. You can estimate the number of households that are poor and the number of people living in households that as a whole are poor, and the gender composition. But you can't see the differences inside those households. And to do that, you need to measure at an individual level and measure multiple members of the household about their situation to see those things people have in common and the experiences that are particular to an individual. For example, their influence over decision-making, perceptions of safety, and hours of unpaid care work. So when you're doing this kind of analysis and reporting, the takeaway is look for individual level data wherever you can, because it helps you see who experiences what issues. And Equality Insights, which is the work that I do, was developed to provide exactly this kind of data, to measure multidimensional poverty and financial circumstances at the individual level, about dimensions of life that more than 3,000 people with lived experience of poverty say matter. So to Hayi's point, citizens were involved from the ground up in this measure in determining what constitutes poverty based on their own lived experience, because it measures it in individual level that can be disaggregated by gender, age, disability, and other individual characteristics as relevant. We're working to change the availability of individual level data on poverty, partnering with governments to collect data, working with civil society and advocates to make individual level measurement of multidimensional poverty a standard option. So this new beta data portal provides data users who are not statisticians with the ability to explore insights for the two most recent phone surveys undertaken by the Tongan and Solomon Islands government and funded by the Australian government. So in Tonga, the data is classified as official statistics, so we're blurring the line here just because civil society organisations are involved with the development of measures doesn't mean that it can't also be official statistics. And we plan to integrate earlier data from face-to-face surveys in other countries, Fiji, South Africa, Indonesia, and the Solomon Islands. We're also exploring with governments in Latin America using existing data and mapping it to the Equality Insights measurement framework to increase access to insights that this approach provides. So the takeaway here is that sometimes getting data that provides the intersectional insights you need for inclusion requires starting again. It requires measurement innovation because not everything that matters is currently measured. Very quickly, a couple of other examples of civil society work trying to make disaggregated insights more accessible. The Equal Measures 2030 SDG Gender Index, which provides a comprehensive tool to measure progress towards gender equality by 2030, and you can explore global rankings, performance by goals, indicator scores by SDG by country. Civil society also produces reports annually that consolidate current relevant data. So sometimes if you don't have the disaggregated data that you need, you may find that reports of civil society for things like the High-Level Political Forum are ways that can provide you with evidence and perspectives regarding the situation facing particular groups. Civil society organisations are also a way to access lived experience. So people are embodied data and knowledge, which may be particularly useful if quantitative data is missing or dated. And as how you were saying, even when data is available, the perspective of constituencies helps bring data to life, brings depth and nuance, and helps you identify the implications and importance of the data. Civil society is also playing a role in initiating and contributing to multi-stakeholder collaborations to address gender data gaps, for example, the Gender and Environment Data Alliance, the Consortium for Inclusive Data that was launched earlier this year. So to summarise, disaggregated data are really vital but not always available. Civil society produce data, analysis and insights that can complement and extend official statistics. People themselves are a valuable source of data about their lived realities, which can support the relevance, currency and inclusiveness of your analysis and reporting. And I'll leave it there with some links that can support you with accessing gender disaggregated data. Thank you, and I will pass back now to Heather.
Thank you. I will actually keep passing it to you guys for your session. You have just a little bit more time for your interactive part. So Howie, I will pass back to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Joe. Let me share a link in the chat just now. If you can go there, and we would like to hear from your input on how to build trust. There's a case, there's a scenario over there. It's based on real scenario, and we wanted to know how we can move forward, how the country, maybe some of your guidance on how to move forward in that particular country. So there's a Milo board. Let me see what I can open that.
Hey, Howie, just want to mention, can you post the link? That's an image.
As an image?
No, the post you just
Oh,
have
wait.
the image and not the
Oh,
link.
gosh. I don't know how to do that. Okay. Now it's a link. Sorry. Yes.
I also added it.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe I can share my screen. I see people moving things. That's great. Like, I can share my screen, right? Just to share the Milo board. Yeah, let me do that. Play with it and see what's your suggestions for the civil society organization that have been challenged their data. They wanted to bring that to official statisticians, but got a little bit discouraged. So how can we foster partnership, help them build trust? And what are the suggestions you can make for national statistics offices? Why is it so slow? Sorry.
So Hao-Yi, while this is coming up, just let me say that one of the approaches that we've found quite useful in our collaboration with government is to set up multi-stakeholder steering committees that are there from the start of the process before data is collected.
Yeah, no, great suggestion. So this is what's a couple of countries that have been doing that or started working on it. For example, in Kenya, there's a technical working group for just recently established with the support from National Statistical Office, but also from the SDG Kenya Forum, Kenya SDG Forum. That was a structure that with 300 civil society organizations for SDG implementation. So those were really the great collaboration.
And I think one of the benefits of that as well is the establishing of trust and patterns of dialogue between civil society organisations and government. That can sometimes be there with larger civil society organisations, but if you have a broader group together, really fostering that sort of depth of engagement and the sense of diversity of civil society contributors.
Yep. Thank you, Joe. There were in Kenya when the national NSO worked together with the civil society organization, they certified some certain data into official, sort of like official. The law doesn't actually allow it. The law says all official statistic has to come from a state institution, but they did certify it. That was really built off a very long-term partnership with it's a large CSO. They've been working together for years, 5-6 years, and then they finally reached to that level of partnership. Then they were able to pass the test. There's a sort of a review process on the quality of those data. I've seen people putting in to provide capacity building. So there's a suggestion to NSOs provide capacity building to CSOs to allow them to collect data following international agreed methodologies. Definitely. Capacity building is a key. Our group is working on that and also trying to identify what capacity building needs is. One thing we were working on, started working on citizen data, we realized that the capacity building is also important for national statistical offices. A lot of citizen data are qualitative data that's not necessarily the strength of NSOs. It's not very commonly used within official statistics. So quite a few NSOs expressed interest to learn further and how to bring the knowledge from civil society organizations into unqualitative data into the official statistic. How do you put together the quantitative data, and qualitative data to really inform on action, on policy action?
I think having a standing mechanism that allows you, because one of the things with official statistics, unless they're the sort of very quick snapshots to get a picture of insights, is that it can take some time between data collection and publication. And having standing groups who have embodied experience to provide insight into how things are changing and in what ways and for whom can also be one way of trying to complement the sort of periodic the quantitative data with qualitative data and insights from civil society. Because I think one of the challenges can be that things that are happening on the ground are not always as well captured in statistics as we'd want them to be. And so also having some kind of mechanism of bringing citizens together as a way of accessing what it feels like on the ground, not just from a data perspective, but also from a legitimacy perspective. So for governments to understand that their policy actions need to connect to what those lived realities are. And sometimes quantitative data is a great way to get at it, but it's not always. And particularly if you're trying to access communities who are particularly marginalised, the way often to do that is through, you know, as you were saying, through access to through civil society organisations to communities. I think one really important thing for the statistical community to think about is to recognise the resource that this is and to resource it, because often small organisations feel that they are consulted extensively and that takes their time and their expertise, but it is then time that they're not spending on other kinds of things. So valuing, I think, that information rather than thinking we're doing civil society organisations a favour by giving them a seat at the table. I think that's also an important way of bringing together the qualitative and quantitative data.
No, absolutely. I think we talked a lot about the power dynamics that from official statistics we have been in the past thinking citizens are our respondents, right? But I think that dynamics has to change. That relationship has to change somehow, even for official data collection. Recognizing that the knowledge in the communities are extremely important for any data collection. So I see here there's a citizen. Thank you, everyone. Citizen-led data. So Heather, you'll be there to tell us when I should stop. Right? I should stop. Right?
You've got about 5 more minutes.
Okay.
And I just wanted to mention there's just one of the questions on the chat is how to teach citizens about data collection protocols. Like perhaps this can also be something you address.
Yep. No, thank you. So capacity building. And officials, I mean, NSOs knows a lot about data collection. How to train enumerators, and should we keep the same protocols? Do we actually allow let local or what's it called, volunteers, community volunteers who are doing collection adapt the question per their own interpretations? These are things I think official statistics has a lot of experience on that. I think that needs to be really worked together with the communities on that. There should be we are supporting countries on building national toolkit for citizen data, so hopefully that's one mechanism that we can really support the CSOs in the country, and sometimes in really the local communities are very much marginalized. And here I see here for CSO engage, train local youth and community members to gather data. Some of our partners, yes, in the Leave Your Known Behind partnership in Nepal, they have been working very closely with youth to have them engage in the data collection, but also as building partners with the youth and younger generation, definitely. NSO validate the real experts and demonstrate how this initiative. So when I think more and more countries are on the NSOs are start to realize how important it is. One thing we started with filling data gap, but the more we go into it, we realize it's more. So the countries realize it's a lot more about filling data gaps. It's about making data better quality, more inclusive, reflecting the real experience within the community, and also gaining support for some of the official data collection, because our survey and census response rate has been declining. But on the other hand, we have all the civil society organizations that come in and with their data, with all the energy, wanted to bring that to the government. So how can we really, like, they do realize, recognize the importance of local community, their expertise as well. In our recent, when we presented the Copenhagen framework to the Statistical Commission this year, we have gathered a lot of support from NSOs themselves, and some have been really pioneering. For example, Colombia, Kenya, and a few others that have really been the pioneer of citizen data, really welcoming, embracing them. Whether they were trying to convince their peers They have done it, they have tried. It's really great to experiment, start working with the citizens and communities on citizen-generated data. So we're trying to convey that message, not we, but it's really the countries that have been doing that.
Hey, can I just briefly add one
Yes, please.
example, which is some years ago now, about a decade ago, but my organisation was involved with a number of others in working to collect the first data about the prevalence of violence against women with disabilities, and that was done in Cambodia. And we trained women with disabilities as data collectors, and the power of that in terms of both the quality of the data, but also the modelling of life possibilities to the carers working with women with disabilities, the honesty that we were able to get in their responses, because it was mixed methods, so it was both the quantitative data but also some first person conversations. And the power of in supporting and training and paying women with disabilities as enumerators, so recognising them as able professionals, was really quite profound for them and for the community. So I think that sense of nothing about us without us in data collection is a really good principle to the extent that we can do it.
Yeah, no, thank you. This is really, really important. We had a side event during the Statistical Commission, and when we had a colleague presenting their data collection experience in Bolivia with person with disability, someone who's suffering from intersectional marginalization, person with disability, indigenous, and women, a girl, had no access to reproductive education, and they were born to hearing family. So this is a deaf person, and then that made a lot of us start reflect, what do we do in our data collection when we encounter a respondent like this, and how do we really make sure they are part of this data collection, and further on, how can we actually bring the help to them? And there were some challenges about, a lot of over collection of data, but there's no impact. Heather?
Yes, Howie. Yes, I'm going to have to ask if you can please close this session.
1 minute. So I see people are still working on it. We can still have the board, I think, for another day. We really appreciate your input, and we will take this input and then to guide our further work. So there's we unfortunately couldn't go through all the comments or your input, but we will take this. Thank you so much for your input, and really appreciate your help. They will be used to guide our further work on this. And if you're interested in working with us, reach out to us through email. I'll post the email address in the chat.
Thank you, Howie.
Joe. Thank you, Joe. Really appreciate your input.
Thank you, Howie and Joe. Really appreciate it. And thank you so much for this session on citizens at the core, engagement for better and more inclusive data. So we are now going to move to a deep dive on one of the 6 key transitions, SDG 7, with our Data Diplomacy Academy colleagues. The first presentation will be on getting to know web tools applied to promoting SDG 7 energy, with Professor Henry Yuri de Silva from the Federal University of Paraíba. And I'll just also mention the other 2 presentations, so that way they can monitor their time as they wish throughout the session. So the second presentation will be on the development of the Enetrix platform. This is a technological innovation in international energy diplomacy made in Paraíba, Brazil, with Professor Rafael Magallanes from the Federal University of Paraíba as well. And then a last presentation on use cases of the Enetrix platform for energy development in the state of Paraíba and the world, with Professor Pascal Gonçalves from the Federal University of Paraíba. So I will pass the floor to you all. You have about 45 minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Heather. The first question is, can you hear me?
Yes, you're good. Go ahead.
So this is the practice now in this kind of meeting. And the second is, can you see my presentation? And I think now it's okay.
Yes, you're great. Thank you.
So thank you so much. It's an honor to be here, and I'm Professor Yuri Pava. I work in the Department of International Relations in the Federal University of Paraíba, and I'm a coordinator of the research group on energy security. And with the Artificial Intelligence Application Laboratory, also at the Federal University of Paraíba, we are developing an Anatrix, a web platform for recording, monitoring, and analyzing agreements signed between countries and international organizations in the energy sector and energy area, as will be presented by my colleagues and friend, Professor Rafael Magalhães and Pascoal Gonçalves. I need to tell you that I'm a 46-year-old cis man, and with the dark and brown eyes and hair, beard and mustache that have a lot of colors, and the black button-down t-shirt that I'm using now. So I'm talking from João Pessoa in the state of Paraíba in Brazil, and our city is known as the easternmost point of the entire American continent. So you can find João Pessoa, the city that I'm talking with you now, easily in the map. And I hope you can come and visit our fantastic city one day. And we would like to thank you, the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs and the United Nations Institute for Training and Research for the invitation to participate in this event, and I could say the same, the United Nations Statistics Division for organizing this conference. And I asked permission to send a special hug from my friend, Ambassador Marco Suazo, Director of the UNITA in New York, with whom we have developed a fruitful work. And one of the latest results of which was the launch of the Data Diplomacy Academy on March 26th. And this year, and a permanent space, the Data Diplomacy Academy is the permanent space for the development of technology, research, training, events, and partnerships at the United Nations, aimed at making international diplomacy more accessible and equitable through data and computer science, especially through the implementation of the web tools. So with these words, I need to tell you that my presentation is about, as you can see, there is no more about the tools that apply to promoting SDG 7 that is related to the energy. As you can see on the screen, the SDG 7, it's about ensure access to affordable, reliable, and sustainable and modern energy for all. And for this, we have 5 targets that you can see in the screen. The first of them is the ensure universal access to modern energy service. The second one is increase substantially the global percentage of renewable energy in the world. The third is the improvement, the energy efficiency. The fourth that we can find in SDG 7A is the enhance international cooperation to promote access to research, technology, and investments in clean energy. The important thing in this target is the international cooperation. And the last one is the 7B, is through the international cooperation, either expand and upgrade energy services for developing countries in special. So in this target, in this different target, we will have a challenge. As you know, we live in the world that we have a lot of informations. This is the era of the big data, the informations that you can see that bring a lot of situations, and you can make us understand what are working, what are not working in the world. So more information about how the government work is available in the internet, as you know, as our colleagues told us in the before me. But And in this case, this data is not systemized, or in the worst case scenario, is not even available for direct download, which is most common. But the thing that we have some platform tools that can help us to work and to promote the SDG 7. And I would like to show you some of them. The first one is the tracking SDG 7. As you can see in the screen, is provided to international community with a global dashboard. So you can see the data in different kinds and different models to resist the progress during the year on energy access, energy efficiency, renewable energy, international cooperation. And as you can see in the right side of the screen, you can see this is a collaborative work. As you can see, we have International Energy Agency, the International Renewable Energy Agency. We have United Nations Statistical Division that is with us today, the World Bank, and the World Health Organization. And I would like to show 3 functionalities that we can see in this tool. First of all, we have target, we have indicators for all of these to measure the progress in the SDG 7. And if you click here in the results, you can see the progress, the indicators during the years from 2000 to 2020. And you can see here, and the indicators, you can see this is the access to electricity, access to clean cooking, renewable energy, energy efficiency, renewable capacity per capita, and international financial flows. So we can see the results, the evolution of the numbers of the promotion of these of all these indicators during the years. And we have another functionality. In this tool, you can choose a specific country or region to have to reach access for the information specific about these indicators, as I mentioned it before. But these in trends, you can choose just 5 indicators. And as you can see here, as you can see in the mirror in the screen, you can choose select the country or region and have you can have information for a lot of countries, as you can see. And the final function that I would like to show you is the country report that we have. That there is a specific information about the country or region, and you have this kind of chart and data with this dashboard that makes something more intelligible or more comprehensive. So this is important because sometimes you don't have time to read the reports. And sometimes you need the answer for the questions in this moment. So you can reach these two to have some information about this. The second one is from International Energy Agency, specifically in the menu. In the top, you can click in data, and you can find the data explorers, data sets, policy database, or chart library. This is here we are different kinds of data that we can see that regard from energy. So we can export. The first one is the energy statistics data browser, where you can find specific information, but you have more information than track SDG, specifically about the production, the consumption of the different kinds of research, and you can find information about specific regions and countries. And there, we have another example here about information about imports and exports of different kinds of research in different kinds of countries. So we have a lot of information of this in different kinds of graphs and charts. And you have a kind of situation that we can find the tables and where we can see a specific kind of information. Is not as visual as you saw before. So this is some information that I would like to bring you from the International Energy Agency. And we have the last one, the policy database, where we can find not specific qualitative and quantitative data, but we can find the documents about the policies in different countries, regions, and topics, as you can see in the screen. After that, I would like to show you a regional solution. So here we have the Sistema de Información Energética de Latinoamérica y Caribe, the Energy Information System for Latin America and Caribbean. So we can find specific data and informations for the countries and for this specific region. And the model is the same. We have this table with these contents, and there is informations with the graph, the chart, as you can see. And we have a national solution where we can find data about the energy, as we have in Brazil, Energy Information System, CE Brazil. This is a particular tool because here in Brazil, CE Brazil, you can find informations from the subnational entities, specifically from Paraíba State, Pernambuco State, São Paulo State. So you still have information from these subnational entities, and this is more or less this is the same form of the other tools that I show you. But there is a question that I need to put you. You can see that we have tools that bring us information, or easily information, and we can find the different kinds of data about energy. But what can we say about this question? What the current the models to access the informations about agreement? And I would like to show how it's not so easy. Agreements between the countries is one of the most important things that we have in international cooperation. And I would like to show how it's difficult to access information about this. So I would like to show you the Treaties and Other International Act series. Is a platform from United States. And the first screen will have just the years, and you click in one of these years, and you have the list of the agreements. So you need to click again, open a PDF a file, and open it and read one by one to know if the agreements about energy, what's the results, it's about renewable energy or non-renewable energy. So we have a lot of work to find information about the agreements from the United States. And we have another platform in Brazil. The name is Concordia platform. It's more easier than the United States platform because you can put some filters to try to find information about the agreements about energy. So in the title of you can try to find agreement, try to search for the title of the agreement. You can put energy and try to find agreement that has a title in the agreement. You can find energy, put the energy, and try to find the word energy inside the agreement, and you can put the country. So you can make some correlations of data, but at the end, what you have? A list of agreement. You need to work one by one and try to know what kind of energy, if it's renewable or non-renewable. And the last one is the platform that we have that we can find there is in United Nations. So this is, as you know, United Nations treaty collections. There is United Nations treaty series online. You have different kind of search. You can put treaty, you can put subject energy, you can put participant as Brazil. The result is the same. The list of the agreements, and you need to open one by one and try to know more about the agreements. So there is a problem. There was a problem because we developed a platform that can help us to know more about the agreements. Is the technology innovation from Paraíba, from Brazil, from global south of the world. And I'd like to give the floor for my friends Pascoal and Rafael Magalhães to show this technology and that can make agreements more accessible and equitable and have a change in the world because it's really difficult, as you can see, to access the agreements. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you. Yes, I'm here. Sorry, thank you. So next we'll hear from Professor Rafael Magallanes on the development of the Netrix platform of technological innovation and international energy diplomacy. And Yuri, there are some questions in the chat. If you can provide links to the tools that you were just describing, participants are very eager to start to check those out. Thank you so much. Rafael?
Yes, thank you. Are you listening to me? Can you hear me? Oh.
Yes, we can, just barely though. Maybe if you can speak up a bit.
Yes, I could try to.
Okay, yeah, that's better.
Okay, no?
Yeah.
Yep. So, Yuri, could you stop sharing your screen so I can start my. Okay. I will try to just improve a little my mic. It's up. It's the maximum right now. So up here. Okay. I think can you see the presentation?
Yep, that's great.
Thank you. I can't see anymore the screen. Okay, no, I can. Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here and sharing the development of this tool called Netrix. So I will continue the speak of Professor Yuri, trying to share how did you develop this Netrix tool. Professor Yuri asked us in area laboratory artificial intelligence applied artificial intelligence laboratory at Federal University in Paraíba. My name is Rafael Magallanes, and I work with artificial intelligence a long time, doing research projects in partnership with university projects and government projects. This specific one, it was really, how can I say, we got a big motivation because it has impact, a profound impact in the society. And to do that, we need the support, financial support of the state government of Paraíba. They allowed us to contract some people, to contract students, and to take advantage of innovative technology to do that. And what make it possible, it's also the motivation behind. We participate in the Data Diplomacy Academy, and you have a motto that states, make international diplomacy more accessible and equitable through data science. That is what really motivates us. And Professor Yuri asked us to try to make a platform, a tool to allow people to register treaties, agreements, to monitoring how it changes and impact the Brazilian government, and to do analysis on this kind of data. We started to build it a year ago, a little more, a little less, with some students. They are listening to this presentation, watching this presentation right now, and all of you can access it using this link in the slide, netrix.eufpb.br. So let's continue. Before starting, just to check the time, sorry. Before starting it, we need to talk with dozens of people to understand how they use this kind of data, what kind of questions, but not only what questions they want to do in this kind of documents, treaties, and agreements, but how they question it. Is something related to analytical analysis, Is something related to how they write it, how to interpret it? Are they asking or looking for some analysis, deep analysis, or how to get some advantage on this agreement? Is the what stakeholders are interested? Is the citizen, the government, the ministry, the companies? What sector are interested in this? So thinking on these conceptions, we got further on trying to answer. What kind of answer? Sometimes it's directly a consequence of the question, but sometimes not. The people just don't know exactly what to expect, what to receive as an answer of the questions. It took us a long time. We tried a lot of things. We created a lot of boards, listings, graphs, reportings. And we try also to check the opportunity gaps. There's some ministry, secretary looking for some information to help them on achieve some objectives. Is it possible to check convergences between different countries, different governments? So this is all that we need to understand, to dealing to work with. And just to share with you what kind of documents, what kind of instruments research will receive it to work. So I share with you, this is the kind of documents. Some of them, we have the textual data already, clean in HTML or text data, but almost of them, it's something like that. One image or a PDF image that we need to obtain it. Sometimes it's easy, just go in the Brazilian platform or the partner country platform, if they have it to obtain. We need to clean it. It's not already perfect text. We need to check the content if it's really corresponds to what we're looking for. And one important thing is to allow the access to people, to citizens in Brazil, to researchers, to developers, to allow the access is not only giving the image, the PDF thing, but the text. We need to account it and to interpret this kind of data. It took us a lot of time, and that's why you use artificial intelligence tools, computer graphic tools also. One thing related to platform, we can find dozens of different platforms. Professor Yuri shared with you some of them. Some of them allow you to get statistical data, some information about the accountability. But all these things can be achieved by regular machine learning, data science, and standard AI, as I use it to say. But nowadays we need we need to do a step forward, and we have technology that allow us to do that thing. I would like to read this quotable sentence. There is a need to interpret elements that are beyond the horizon of the information questions that you suppose it to think. They require a look at the people, place, and context in which they are used. When two countries enter into an agreement, the interpretation of its content naturally consider much more information about the countries and their socio-economic conditions than just its content. When you are starting to analyze one treaty agreement between, for example, Brazil and Argentina, we can't consider just what we read on this. We have a long history between two countries. We have a long and big economical shares related to that. We need to consider this kind of information interpretation to understand what they want to do with this agreement. We need to go beyond what is just in the text. And we can do some of this now with nowadays technologies like large language models, what NLP, natural language processing, with text analysis. And this is the kind of technology that we put in Anytrix. And not only to interpret, but to allow the user of the platform to interact with in a easiest way. So we do text analysis, we extend the database with data from NOLAD, from Argentina, not only from Brazil. We try to make it more natural and human accessible. And we want to extend subjects. Today, it's really energy related, but we go on with others. To do that, we have people behind, a lot of people, not only university one, but ministry, secretary, executive people from all government and stakeholders, UN people also. We stand in people and tooling, AI tool, as I mentioned before, but we have people doing Anytrix with more than 20 people, 22 people almost. People from legal aspects, diplomacy, AI tooling, development tool, students, researchers, professionals. And based on that, we really engage students to do, young people to participate. And I would like to share with you some words from one student that collaborated in this development, and I will share one video that he speaks some things to you. This is Jonas, and it's just 3 minutes video.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jonas Felipe, and I am a research student at Area Laboratory, member of Anytrix development team, and director of the Technology and Artificial Intelligence League, TAIL. A notable initiative is made up of students from all over Brazil and the world. We have numerous purposes of developing innovative technologies with artificial intelligence for different domains, such as education, health, public policy, security, and entertainment. We should judge some of the areas we work with determination and dedication. We are currently focused on developing technologies to enhance the use of Anytrix. In your first project, we reached a significant milestone by developing a tool to help populate the platform's database with textual content structured for Concordia agreement. The technology uses an optical character recognition to read images for agreement PDF. After this, the extract text goes through an orthographical correction process. Last but not least, the text is uploaded to Anytrix database. This evolutionary tool opens up a range of unprecedented opportunities, allowing textual searches to be carried out in the body of documents as well as the training of neural networks to generate insights and the development of several other innovative technologies. This is only possible thanks to the union between the league created by students and the expertise of professionals and researchers who share the desire to promote change. We believe that technology has the power to transform life and build a more successful future for society. We appreciate the opportunity to share our vision and look forward to contributing to the evolution of Anytrix and data diplomacy. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Jonas. Thank you very much. I know you are watching the presentation right now. So we really like to empowering the young people from the university, and they are citizens like us. So what we already done in the platform, Professor Pascal will show you some use case, but we achieve some functional and non-functional requirements. So we can share with you some multimedia data, some graphs, interactive data also. You can access the Anytrix in 3 languages right now: Portuguese, English, and Spanish. our regional main language in Latin America and America at all. We are putting more languages over this year. We did a great effort to achieve some accessibility patterns. Someone can read the screen with a screen reader. We have technology built in UFPB, the university, that makes sign language. So you just point the text and it generates the sign language. Someone can do content search based on all kinds of topic. And what are you doing right now as innovation about this platform is to improve accessibility and compliance. We are introduce a lot of large language model related technology, retrieval, augmented generation. We starting to talk with the documents, to do conversations with the documents. In 1 month, probably you can access the release, it's just in trial period. We think in human language, not only in the possibility of the computer to read the documents, but to interact with the human. We are helping to commit with some SDG points. We are trying to check in every agreements and treaties what kind of renewable they are sharing. If we are checking if the international financial flow to support development countries are really having this kind of treaties. We are checking national laws to check if the treaty really generates some important laws, if it are really executing the practice in the country, and generate a lot of reports and checking the news. So I will stop now, and thank you a lot. I will pass my word to Professor Pascal. He will introduce you, share some use case of the Energetics platform. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Rafael. So we will now hear use cases of the Energetics platform for energy development in the state of Paraíba and the world from Professor Pascal. Please go ahead. There's just to let you know, there's about 10 minutes remaining in the session.
Yes, okay. I'll try to make my presentation as most objective as I can. Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon. And my name is Pascal. I work with Professor Yuri at the Department of International Relations at the Federal University of Paraíba. I've been working since 2019 with data collection and analysis to monitor the implementation of the SDGs in the cities of the state of Paraíba in Brazil. And since last year, Professor Yuri asked me to work with him in the project of Energetics that I will present to you right now. And let me share my screen. And I think you can see that, okay? So we've been working with Energetics with a different approach compared to those that the Statistics Division of the United Nations presented earlier. We are dealing basically with qualitative data and not quantitative data. And that's a huge difference because in data analysis, qualitative data is treated mostly as non-structured data. So there's a huge gaps in the huge volumes of the data that it's actually is on the internet right now. And this project proposes to analyze the cooperation agreements that Brazil and other countries are signing and putting forward in the energy area. So the cases that I'm about to show, and I invite you to check I'll put the link here in the comments. I think Heather did this earlier, but I will do that again. put the link to the Anytrix here. So check it while I'm doing the presentation. And let's go back here. Okay, so in the first screen when you enter the Anytrix, and I just realized that the language button got back here. And when I did this print screen earlier today, it was missing, but now it's back on its spot. So you probably can see that in English and Spanish as well. Here is in Portuguese. So when you enter this page, you can see on the right side of the screen that there is the Brazilian platform. There are the Concordia agreements that Yuri talked earlier, and the World platform that uses the UN Treaty Series data. That they are the agreements that countries all over the world signed and shared that information with the United Nations, and that's stored in United Nations Treaty Series. So most of my presentation will focus on the Brazilian platform, that it's the most developed part of the website and the Anytrix tool. But at the end, I will give a general idea of how the World platform is built right now. And we have a major update in the Anytrix just yesterday, and some very new interesting features are now on the site. So this presentation is based on three kinds of users for the Anytrix tool. The first of all is the diplomatic bodies and other government actors. So all these presentations are based on real feedbacks that we receive during the process of building the Anytrix platform. So we collected these feedbacks directly from Brazilian diplomats and other countries' diplomats that we talk about it. And the second moment of this presentation, I will give some ideas that how it can be used for civil society actors, and those feedbacks came from civil society actors, real ones. And the last ones, they use some ideas for for researchers, and that's the case, at least for me and Professor Yuri. And here we go. Now, well, if you are diplomat or other agent in the service of your country, then you can quickly find your country energy partners and pull up important, summarized, and detailed information. Yuri showed the problem that we have with the repositories where the agreements are originally stored. Concordia has all those agreements of Brazil, but it's extremely costly to get those information. So here we get those data. We have we put some categories on the data, and now they are easily accessed and easily manageable. So here I give an example with the agreements that Brazil signed with Ecuador. Use the search for docs tool. We go to this website. We search the partner, in the case Ecuador, and we have all those informations, that the numbers of the agreements that Brazil signed with Ecuador, the main resources that these agreements are talking about, and the main matrix that is mixed, or that means that renewable energies and fossil fuel energies, I believe. So there is some detailed information that comes on the bottom of the screen, and we can also check the time series of when those agreements were signed and when this diplomatic approach from Brazil and Ecuador happened. So it happened some quite long time ago. The last agreements were signed in 2008, and since then we don't have any more political approximation with that country in energy matters. So still, in terms of diplomatic and other government actor, we can access the full text of the agreement. The Enetrix database is linked with Concordia, and we can scroll down this research page, the document search page, and on the bottom of it, there are all those informations of the agreements, and we can have a direct link to the full text. And as Rafael Magalhães just said, that's the part of Enetrix that will be implemented soon, with the full content of those agreements direct on the Enetrix website, using artificial intelligence tools to gather all those textual content of the agreements directly on our website. So if you are other government actors, such as a governor or a city major, you can use those information of political partnerships of Brazil and try to identify investments and partnership opportunities in your local area, such as cities, state, or other subnational unities. So that's a way that we present this project to the government of the Paraíba state, and we managed to find some funding to advance the implementation of all those tools that we are showing right here, right now. So our state, Paraíba, in Brazil, is in the northeast of Brazil, as Yuri said. So here is an area, is a region that's it's highly important for wind energy and solar energy. So the state can check all the agreements that are made on solar energy, such as I put here, and try to identify the agreements that are already signed by federal government, and try to put forward some negotiation and find new partners, and try to establish new investment areas and accelerate energy transition in Brazil, and manage to implement SDG 7 and energy transition, in fact. So here you can see that the latest agreements signed were with India and Mozambique, 2016, 2015, in solar energy as a main source with these agreements. So if you're a civil society actor, you can see what kind of resources your country's diplomatic efforts are focused on. So we have those feedbacks from a civil society group here in Brazil that are monitoring the implementation and energy transition, and they are a group from Rio de Janeiro, and they gave us this feedback on how they can use this platform and how they will use this platform, and to check and monitor the Brazilian diplomatic and political efforts to go forward with energy transition. So very similar to the use that I just presented, the civil society groups can choose the right parameters and identify which renewable energy agreements, for example, are already signed, the most important resources negotiated, and download these agreements and use them to pressure governments for faster energy transition, more international cooperation, or even full implementation of what has already been signed. So this is already on the way, and for the final part of my presentation, as a researcher, I present just an idea of how this data can be used. I would suggest that that researchers organize our data into data frames, such as this. This is a print screen of one of my Excel matrices that I've been working recently. with Anytrix data and explore it with many different types of strategies, methodologies to describe, visualize, correlate different variables or single variables. So this example on the left is a word cloud I did with the titles of the agreements, and on the right, an analysis of the kinds of matrix that the agreements deal with. So the last part, really the last part, an overview of the Word platform, and just checking my time. And then,
we're actually almost out of time, so
yes, sorry.
Sorry.
Bon, I will just pass those screens that's what's got online yesterday, and the Word platform with 2,975 agreements from all over the world that everyone can check later. So I will leave an Anytrix, a QR code for Miro. I would appreciate if you give us your feedbacks, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor. This entire segment has been very interesting, and the tool is amazing. I'm super excited to also delve into this tool and check it out, as I know many of the participants are as well. As the professor mentioned, there's a Miro virtual board where you can provide feedback on the site. I've also provided the link in the chat in case you can please provide some feedback. So this is actually the conclusion of our session, and I'm going to now pass the baton to Professor Yuri for final remarks. Just want to thank all of the panelists for your interventions and presentations and all of the rich information that's been provided throughout the session, which will we will have the presentations provided on the meeting website, which I will also provide the link in just a minute. So I'm going to pass the baton to you, Professor, for final words. Thank you so much.
Just 30 seconds. So thank you so much for everybody, and I need to say that a special thanks to you, Heather. Was great. It was great in this in this job, and you were great. You were great in the organization of this this panel, and especially thanks to Niall that helped us in Unitar base. And I would just like to say that that the data diplomacy comes to change the world, to make the things different. So we need to put all of us together, and use the data to bring the transformation for the people. This is the main purpose that we are here. As scientists, as politicians, and as research, we need to change the world to make this place a better place to live. Data is not something, it's just one thing to make something different in this world. And we believe that you are doing that with Data Diplomacy Academy, United Nations, here in our university, and we can do this better together. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all. Have a lovely day.